Welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely pumped to have you here, because today we're unraveling a massive, kind of silent shift that has totally taken over our digital lives. I mean, think back 20 years ago. If you wanted a new program, you got in your car, drove to a store, bought software in a physical box, installed it once with a CD-ROM, and you owned it forever. But today, well, we've stepped into an entirely different reality. We no longer own our digital tools. Instead, we just rent them, endlessly, until we inevitably forget to cancel them before the free trial ends. We're paying monthly subscriptions for almost every single application we touch. So today, we're going to explore exactly what this shift means, how these modern applications actually function behind the scenes, and what it all means for you and your data.
Okay, let's dive into this. What exactly happened to owning software? It's a question you've probably asked yourself while staring at your monthly credit card statement. We went from that single one-time CD purchase to paying $12 a month for Notion, $10 for Canva, another $15 for Adobe, maybe $11 for Spotify. The entire tech industry basically abandoned the software box for a model called SaaS, software as a service. And this wasn't an accident. It was a highly calculated evolution. But to really wrap our heads around why this happened, we need to look at just how different this modern setup is from what we used to know.
It really all comes down to a simple analogy: renting versus owning. The old model was essentially like buying a house. You bought a license for something like Microsoft Office 2003 or Photoshop CS6. You installed it directly onto your computer's hard drive, you owned that version locally, and you were completely responsible for it. If you wanted the flashy new features a few years later, well, you had to pay extra and buy the next box. The SaaS model, on the other hand, is like renting a modern, fully serviced apartment. You pay a monthly or annual fee. The software is delivered entirely over the cloud, usually through a web browser or a super lightweight app. You don't have to worry about maintenance because the provider handles all the infrastructure, the servers, the whole shebang. And because you're continuously connected, you get automatic updates without having to lift a single finger.
Section 1. The end of ownership. This transition from the physical box to the cloud browser didn't just change how we pay. It fundamentally rewired our relationship with the tools we use to create, organize, and just run our lives. Because here is the harsh reality. With the old model, if you never spent another dime, you could still open that software 10 years later and access your files. But with SaaS, if you stop paying that $15 a month for Adobe, everything disappears. Your access is totally revoked. Your data lives on their servers, not your device. You're paying for continuous access to a remote service. It's incredibly convenient for sure, but it completely redefines who actually holds the power over your digital workspace. Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds, how SaaS actually works. We know it's a rental model, right? But what is actually happening behind your screen? Let's peel back the curtain and look at the actual technical mechanics. This is the concrete, invisible journey of every single click and keystroke you make in a SaaS app. When you type a sentence into Notion or drag an image in Canva, that's your user input. Your browser instantly grabs that action, wraps it in HTTPS encryption to keep it totally secure, and sends it miles, sometimes even continents away over the internet. Step 4 is where the real magic happens: cloud server processing. The actual computing isn't happening on your laptop's processor at all. It's happening on a massive server rack somewhere else. That remote server calculates the change, saves your data, and then fires the result back to your screen in mere milliseconds. Your computer is essentially just acting as a fancy remote control for a much more powerful machine miles away.
So how do these companies handle millions of us clicking around at the exact same time? Through a concept called multi-tenancy. Now, this is a big, kind of intimidating industry term, but it's actually a beautifully efficient concept. Going back to our apartment building metaphor, multi-tenancy just means the SaaS provider builds one massive software structure, one version of the code running on shared servers. Everyone logging in is literally walking into the same overarching building. But your specific workspace, your data, is logically separated and locked tight. You can't see another user's Notion workspace, and they definitely can't see yours. You all share the plumbing and the electricity, but you've got your own private, secure rooms.
But here is a wildly surprising fact about those shared servers. Most of your favorite SaaS companies, the ones you're paying every single month, don't even own the servers your data sits on. No way, right? The hidden infrastructure powering almost the entire SaaS industry relies on three massive giants: Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, and Microsoft Azure. SaaS providers essentially rent their own cloud infrastructure from these developers. So you're renting the software from a company, who is in turn renting the computing power from Amazon or Google. It is just this incredibly intricate, layered web of rentals.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is Section 3, the business of subscriptions. So why did every major tech company decide to ditch the one-time sale and basically push you into a subscription? The economics looked exactly like this number, 3 to 5 times.
In the SaaS business, there's a metric called customer acquisition cost, literally what it costs them to get you to sign up. They compare that to your lifetime value. Because SaaS companies are collecting a predictable, recurring monthly fee, that revenue compounds over time. By keeping you on a subscription, a SaaS customer is ultimately worth 3 to 5 times more than a customer who simply bought a software box once. To put that into perspective, this predictable revenue stream is the absolute holy grail for a modern business.
This economic reality directly echoes the famous quote by venture capitalist Mark Andreessen, "Software is eating the world." And the SaaS model? That's the teeth. It's exactly why massive, established legacy companies completely pivoted. Adobe is the perfect example here. They used to sell Photoshop for hundreds of dollars in a literal box. But they realized the compounding power of SaaS and boldly moved their entire suite to the Creative Cloud subscription model. People were pretty upset at first, but from a business perspective, it was a wildly successful move to capture that predictable, recurring value.
So how do they actually get you into this highly lucrative subscription in the first place? They use what's called the freemium funnel. Most SaaS tools today, whether we're talking Slack, Canva, or Spotify, offer a completely free tier. They give you just enough features or storage or usage limits to make the tool super useful. Their goal is to get you hooked. They want you to use it until you hit what the industry calls the aha moment. That moment you realize you literally can't live without it. Once you hit that friction point, like a premium feature you suddenly need or a storage limit you max out, you gladly pull out your wallet and convert into that smaller slice of paid subscribers.
And this brilliantly illustrates Section 4, the vendor lock-in trap. Because getting you to subscribe is really only step 1. Step 2, making sure you never ever leave. Let's look at the slightly darker side of all this convenience and focus on the intentional stickiness of the SaaS model. Have you ever noticed how beautifully all these tools talk to each other? That is thanks to APIs, application programming interfaces. They act as the invisible backbone connecting these apps. Notion can seamlessly embed a live Figma design board. A form submission can trigger Zapier to instantly post a message in your Slack channel. This feels like a massive productivity boost, and hey, it is. But it also creates an incredibly sticky web. By deeply embedding your workflows across multiple connected tools, it becomes intentionally painful for you to unplug and switch to a competitor. The harder it is to leave, the lower their cancellation or churn rate. And it's not just everyday users getting caught in this sticky web. Massive global enterprises face the exact same trap through the build versus buy dilemma. Imagine a huge company needing a system to track customers. Building a custom CRM from scratch involves incredibly high costs, hiring a small army of developers, and really heavy ongoing maintenance. Or they could just buy into SaaS and subscribe to Salesforce, getting instant access and a super predictable monthly cost. The catch? Total vendor dependence. SaaS has shifted the math so aggressively that the cost of building is almost always higher than simply subscribing, locking even the world's biggest corporations into endless rental agreements.
So, the crucial point is Section 5, protecting your digital life. Since we're basically living in a rented digital world, you need to know how to navigate it safely. First and foremost, let's talk about security. Because SaaS providers hold the data of millions of users in those multi-tenant servers we talked about, they are incredibly high-value targets for hackers. When you're evaluating a tool that's going to hold your sensitive information, you absolutely must look for these specific security standards. Look for SOC 2 Type 2 compliance, which is a strict industry standard auditing process. Ensure they offer end-to-end encryption to protect your data in transit, and always make sure they support two-factor authentication to protect your individual login.
But hey, you should also know that you don't literally have to rent. If you're deeply concerned about owning your data, there's an entire ecosystem of open-source, self-hosted alternatives out there. If you love Notion but want to truly own your notes, you can use Joplin. If you want the power of Photoshop without the endless Adobe subscription, there's GIMP. And instead of renting space on Google Drive, you can actually set up Nextcloud on your very own server. These tools offer really similar functionality, but the huge difference is they put the ownership entirely back in your hands.
Now, for the vast majority of us who will absolutely keep using SaaS because of its undeniable convenience, I want you to run through this rapid-fire checklist before you type in your credit card details for your next subscription. First, can I easily export my data in a standard format if I ever decide to leave? Second, what is their actual written policy on what happens to my data if their company goes out of business? And third, is this pricing locked in, or is this just a promotional rate that's going to randomly spike in year 2? Answering these questions up front gives you all the leverage.
The SaaS revolution brought us incredibly powerful tools, completely frictionless updates, and access to cloud computing that we could literally never achieve on our own local hard drives. But it also required us to trade away ownership for that convenience.
As you look at the giant web of subscriptions operating your life right now, I want to leave you with one final, absolutely vital question to chew on. Are you renting the right software, or is it renting you? Thank you so much for joining me on today's Explainer, and stay curious out there.